Let's get this out of the way. When a man says, "I don't want anything serious," believe him. But don't assume that means he's emotionally unavailable or traumatized. Most of the time, it just means he wants the benefits of being close to you without any long-term obligation. This isn't about confusion. It's about control. He wants to see you, talk to you, sleep with you, maybe even be emotionally supported by you. But he doesn't want to be responsible for how his presence affects your life. That's why he sets the tone early with phrases like, "Let's just see where this goes," or "I'm not ready for something serious." It sounds harmless. It sounds honest. But here's what's really happening. He's protecting his freedom while keeping access to you. Carl Jung had a quote that cuts through this kind of behavior. "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." So let's look at what he's doing. He's texting you. He's making plans. He's being affectionate. But he's not moving the relationship forward. He's staying emotionally parked, and you're hoping he'll eventually hit the gas. That's the trap. You end up stuck in something that feels like a relationship, but doesn't function like one. You're emotionally invested. He's emotionally comfortable. Now let's look at why this works for him, and why it drains you. You're giving him everything a committed partner would give him. Emotional intimacy, validation, physical connection, all without demanding exclusivity or progression. You think patience will change him. You assume that if you keep showing him your value, he'll realize what he's risking. But people don't value what's always available. They value what's hard to access. He doesn't feel pressure to choose, because he knows you won't leave. He doesn't fear losing you, so he has no reason to commit. Most women in this situation start asking themselves the wrong questions. What am I doing wrong? Is he just scared of getting hurt again? Maybe he just needs time? The better question is, why am I accepting a connection where I'm being emotionally used without emotional security? Jung believed that people project their unmet needs onto others. In this dynamic, you're projecting your hope for a relationship onto someone who isn't offering one. You're filling in the blanks with potential. But here's the harsh truth. A man will stay in that gray area for as long as you allow it. He'll keep you around until he meets someone who requires more. And suddenly, commitment won't feel so impossible for him. This isn't about being good enough or waiting for the right moment. It's about leverage. It's about perceived value. And your value drops every time you negotiate against your own standards just to keep someone interested. If you want to change how this dynamic works, you can't do it by talking him into it. You have to change your role in his life. That doesn't mean disappearing or playing games. It means removing the benefits of closeness when there's no commitment. You don't reward indecision with your presence. You don't keep showing up like a girlfriend when he's showing up like a casual visitor. Once a man realizes he can keep you around without offering commitment, he stops trying. Not because he's evil, but because there's no internal pressure. Humans, by nature, follow the path of least resistance. If you give him emotional access, physical connection, and consistent presence, all while saying, "I'm fine if we're not official," he'll take that deal every time. At that point, you've been categorized, not as someone to take seriously, but as someone who's available, without boundaries. This is where you stop and reassess your position. Are you being chosen, or just being used? The first move is simple, but not easy. You remove yourself from the role you were never officially given. If he says he doesn't want a relationship, you believe him, and act accordingly. That means no more playing the emotional girlfriend role. No more checking in. No more loyalty to someone who hasn't earned it. Most people confuse boundaries with punishment. They're not the same. Boundaries aren't there to manipulate him into action. They're there to protect your self-worth. When you enforce them clearly and calmly, you communicate something he hasn't seen from you yet: self-respect. Here's how you reset the dynamic. Stop being emotionally available on demand. Don't answer texts right away. Don't rush to meet up. Don't drop plans to accommodate him. Let him feel the lack of access. Don't explain your distance. Let him notice it. The moment you start explaining why you're pulling back, you invite negotiation. And right now, this isn't up for negotiation. Shift your attention away from him, not to make him jealous, but to reclaim your energy. Start focusing on the areas of your life that aren't about him: your body, your goals, your mental health, your social circle. When you redirect your emotional energy, your brain starts breaking the dependency loop you've been stuck in. Don't threaten to leave. Just act differently. Threats don't build respect. Action does. If he asks what's going on, tell the truth. Once. I'm not looking to keep investing in something that isn't going anywhere. Then stop talking. The more you try to justify your boundary, the weaker it becomes. Psychologically, here's what happens. When a man loses access to something he took for granted, his brain experiences a disruption. Jung referred to this kind of shock as a break in the persona. The constructed image he had of you, the always there, always caring version, starts falling apart. And that's when the emotional reality hits him. Up to this point, he's been comfortable. He's been able to compartmentalize you, emotionally close, romantically casual. But when your behavior no longer matches that category, he either has to adapt or accept the loss. This is where real obsession can begin. Not because you played games, but because you created contrast. One day he had you. The next, you're unavailable. That tension builds interest. It forces him to ask, maybe for the first time, what am I actually doing here? Am I ready to lose her? Or am I ready to grow up? Men don't change under pressure. They change when they lose comfort. When the benefits disappear, they're left with a choice: evolve or exit. Now, you're no longer in a passive position, waiting for a decision. You're creating a psychological environment where only men who are emotionally ready will stay. This doesn't guarantee that he'll commit. Some men will walk away when they realize they can't control the terms anymore. And that's good. That protects you from wasting more time on someone who is never going to step up. But the ones who stay, the ones who return differently, do so because they saw what life feels like without you. And that contrast changes everything. Do not fall for temporary attention spikes. Do not break your stance just because he calls more or seems more into it for a few days. Real change takes time. Until he shows consistent behavior over time, you stay in your lane. Calm, focused, detached. The strongest move is not revenge. It's clarity. You stop giving energy to someone who's not building with you. And you don't look back. Let's get practical. By now, you've pulled back. You've stopped feeding the connection with your time, attention, and emotional availability. At this stage, he feels the shift. The dynamic that once gave him comfort now gives him uncertainty. And here's where his behavior will change, not always in the way you want, but in a way that reveals the truth. When men are used to emotional supply and suddenly it stops, the brain reacts like it's losing control of a known resource. That creates what psychologists call scarcity perception. Humans overvalue what is limited or hard to access, and undervalue what's always there. You used to be predictable. Now you're not. That unpredictability triggers attention. Not because you became more attractive overnight, but because you became harder to reach. That shift breaks the pattern. And pattern disruption, in psychology, is what creates internal tension. Here's what to expect next. He'll test your new behavior. Expect him to reach out just to check in, or with a casual "how are you" message. He's not necessarily ready to step up. He just wants to know if you're still emotionally available. This is where most women fold. Don't. If you respond warmly, he knows nothing has changed. Your response should be polite, but neutral. Minimal energy. No long replies. No emojis. No vulnerability. He may get defensive, even irritated. That's not love. That's control slipping. You were feeding his ego. Now you're not. He might say things like, "You've changed. You're being distant." Or, "I feel like you're mad at me." Stay calm. Don't explain. Don't apologize. His discomfort is not your problem to fix. It's a sign that your boundary is working. He might increase the effort, temporarily. This is the most dangerous phase. He might start calling more, suggesting plans, even talking about, maybe, being ready for something more serious. You'll be tempted to believe it. But don't judge his effort by the spike. Judge it by consistency over time. If he's still inconsistent 2 weeks later, he hasn't changed. He's just trying to regain control. This stage isn't about getting him to fall in love. It's about creating emotional conditions where he has to decide. Is he going to grow up and step up? Or is he going to stay a consumer of attention with no commitment? Carl Jung spoke about integration of the shadow, the process of confronting uncomfortable truths about the self. This is his chance to confront his own fear of intimacy, his avoidance, his need for control. And it won't happen if you keep protecting him from discomfort. Your absence forces reflection, not because you're trying to manipulate him, but because you're no longer participating in his emotional avoidance. Now let's address something important. You don't win by getting him back. You win by breaking the cycle. If he comes back without real change, you don't go back. You don't settle for better behavior in the short term. You wait for actual evolution, which always includes the following: clear emotional communication. willingness to define the relationship, consistency in action, respect for your time and boundaries. Without those things, it's all noise. Without commitment, his effort means nothing. Here's where the obsession part comes in. Real obsession isn't based on how good you look or how fun you are. It comes from this equation. Value times scarcity times emotional impact equals obsession. You've shown value through emotional presence, loyalty, and care. Now you've added scarcity by removing availability. Next comes emotional impact, not through drama, but through the loss of comfort. When those three elements align, the brain associates you with significance. You're no longer just another option. You're now the one that got away, or the one that needs to be taken seriously before it's too late. That's not manipulation. That's the psychology of consequence. You didn't threaten. You didn't chase. You just stopped showing up for someone who refused to show up for you. And whether he rises to the occasion or not, something powerful has already happened. You've shifted from emotional dependence to emotional authority. In this position, you're not reacting to his choices. You're setting the standard and letting reality sort out who's capable of meeting it. By now, you've done what most people can't. You've stopped trying to convince someone to choose you. You stopped performing, over-explaining, and holding out for potential. You made the shift from being available to being intentional. Now, let's address the question that's probably in your mind. What if he comes back? The answer depends entirely on how he comes back and what version of himself shows up. There are two typical scenarios. Scenario 1. He comes back with familiar patterns. This is the most common. He reaches out, maybe says he's been thinking about you, maybe shows a little more attention or softness than before. But when you look closely, nothing has fundamentally changed. He still avoids defining anything. He's still inconsistent. He still doesn't ask what you want, just what he misses. This isn't love. It's ego. He's not afraid of losing you. He's afraid of losing his emotional supply. Don't confuse temporary effort with growth. Carl Jung wrote that the greatest danger in life is not facing our own illusions. You can't afford to live in illusion anymore. If he comes back like this, your answer is simple. No access without evolution. Not better words, better behavior. Not better effort for a week, sustained change over time. Until then, keep him blocked, muted, or at emotional arm's length. Scenario 2. He comes back with real change. This is rare, but it does happen when the loss actually forced him to confront himself. This version comes back with clarity, accountability, a defined offer of commitment. He doesn't just say he misses you. He says what he's now ready to offer, and he takes consistent action to back it up. Even then, your job isn't to just take him back. Your job is to observe him over time. Don't rush the process. Watch for these signs. Does he follow through on what he says? Does he make space for your emotions and your pace? Does he now respect your boundaries without testing them? If yes, then, and only then, do you consider letting him re-earn a place in your life? But here's the real point. You don't need him to come back for this to be a win. The entire shift was never about him. It was about you no longer making decisions from emotional hunger. You stopped trying to prove your worth to someone who was never questioning it, just exploiting it. You reclaimed your time. You reclaimed your peace. You showed yourself that you don't need to be chosen to have value. Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming your full, integrated self, only begins when you stop living through the projections of others. When you stop trying to be who someone else might want. When you stop bending to their emotional limitations. When you stop waiting for permission to be valued. That's when you step into psychological maturity. So what happens next? You continue to live, grow, and choose. You get clearer about what you're available for. You stop negotiating with people who don't know how to value intimacy. You build connections based on mutual respect, not emotional begging. If he can meet you there, great. If not, you've already won. Because you're not needing someone to want you anymore. You're choosing who gets access to you, based on who aligns with your standards, your self-respect, and your future. And that's how you win, without chasing, without convincing, and without losing yourself.